It's Craiggie's Connacht Rugby podcast. We got a busy group of people here tonight to review the first Connacht game we all got to see for the new season. We've got Danny. How you, Danny?
How are things?
You watched the game on YouTube or whatever it was, the YouTube channel, so we'll be getting your thoughts on it. We've got Rob, you were commentating.
I also fell asleep and delayed this by 10 minutes, so I don't know how busy I was, but anyways.
That's all right. It's all right. William, you're here. We had your thoughts, so we'll get Danny and Rob's thoughts on that. We'll talk about
it. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get another view on it.
Then we'll talk a bit about the World Cup. I've been chatting to Marc O'Connor again, our resident fan in France, who's loving the sightseeing in France. But he's another major review or positive review of what the Stade de France was like. So it'll be worth listening to Marc in a few minutes. And we'll just talk about the rest of the World Cup. We'll finish off with some good news for Connacht women, who've got 5 women in the new Ireland squad, but we'll talk about that near the end. Right, Connacht. They had a really good win in the A game, coming back from, I think it was 26 points to 5 down at one stage. But the game you saw, Danny and Rob, you were commentating on, was the main game, which maybe if Connacht had kept the side that had finished the first half on for at least 10 or 15 minutes in the second half, might have ended up in the victory rather than the defeat that they had.
Maybe just don't make so many changes at once. That's always going to upset any team. That would upset international teams. But I thought guys that came on in the second half, I felt a lot of the new signings, JJ impressed me very, very quickly. He was able to unlock our attack where Jack couldn't in the first half. Maybe it was a case of Cathal Ford, who seems to be in flying form and picking up where he left off last year, was kind of giving him a bit more than Daly. Not to say that the guys in the first half weren't working hard, but there's definitely something extra about Cathal Ford. And also you had Bolton on one wing making massive breaks. He did very well for a chip through from JJ.
Your thoughts, Rob? What were now that you've had a few days to think back and look back at it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's lived long in the memory now, if I'm being honest. So it wasn't one of those games you came away from going, X, Y, or Z. But because I think we've highlighted the main points already. Maybe the one that we didn't mention here, but you mentioned in the post-game pod, was Andrew Smith, who kind of lit up the crowd, as William said in his interview with Pete Wilkins, and gave some of the highlights of the day, and got a lovely reception from the crowd on a couple of occasions. But
the big crowd, like there was
huge.
That was a huge crowd. Like I know
over 2,000.
Oh, wow. I'd say it was well into the 3,000 mark.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
you
certainly
couldn't really see it on the camera. You got the odd flash of the clan.
The clan stand was fairly full, and the far side was very full. Actually, much fuller than I expected it to be. So yeah, it was a pretty solid crowd, and seemed to be enjoying it, and seemed to love getting back. And I'm assuming Ireland doing so well in the World Cup's having a good impact on that.
Do you know, I was really excited again just to see he's still going well. This wasn't one of the best players in the field, but it's just great to see Jeremy Kilgallen still finishing tries the way he does. I just think he's a cracking player. He's so underrated, and whatever little bits and bobs were keeping him out of selections on occasions when he looked to be in form, I hope he's tidied them up. Let's put it that way, right? Because management know more than we do, but he just seems to be superb.
He tries in 17 matches.
He had a lot of work to do. Like he had a lot of work to do for that try. Like he was given a lot of space, yes, but he still had to put the foot down. Holy cow, did he move?
Yeah,
for a big man. And he made quite a few breaks during that game, and he was good under the high ball. So I'd love to see more of him this year as well.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's right, Danny, but you need that balance, don't you? I mean, if you have an Andrew Smith on one side, it's good to have a Jeremy Kilgallen on the other, right?
Oh God, yeah. Some teams will just try and beat you with pure pace and have two Andrew Smiths, but I think for Connacht it definitely works well. It's a pity it didn't work out for her, but Adam Byrne had that ability as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there was that nice kind of balance every time we have it. Like, imagine you have Kilgallen on one wing and Mac Hansen on the other. Like, what do you do as a defense? You've got a guy that you don't know what he's going to do, and you've another guy he's just so powerful and has the pace to back it. You know, and then you put Andrew Smith or Porch, who are lightning quick as well. Like, it's a really nice balance how you can, and I'd say it's very nice for our out halves and Jack and JJ, kind of having that balance of two different players, two completely different opposite players that will kind of work out in different attacking.
What
Agreed,
what about Joe Joyce? How did you think he went? He's a big man.
He's a big man.
Impressive. Just the way he took contact. There was one point where I can't remember who the loose head for Munster was, but he came full tilt at Joyce. He just took the hit and just kept going. Like, he just stopped, brushed him off, and off he went. Like, that's impressive stuff. Like, he really did look like an absolute animal out there.
I agree.
Yeah,
Hurley Langton. Oh yeah, sorry, who's jumping in there? Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's interesting. He ran the line out in the first half, and Oisin Dowling run it in the second. I think John Muldoon has made a decision to have more. He wants more callers.
Yeah.
So that so he's brought two new people in already. So that was interesting, because I wasn't sure who was calling it.
Something that like, I was under Muldoon and Weasons for a couple of years, but something I do remember being in the pack, it didn't matter where you were playing, you needed to know everything that was going on in the lineup. You had to be able to call, you had to be able to jump in case prop went down, anything. Everybody had to know, everyone had to be able to move to any other position. That's how Muldoon does it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more different call players or call makers for the lineup. But it changes the whole responsibility in the lineup, where guys aren't all looking to one guy. Everyone knows their job. You look at the way Ireland are playing at the moment. Everybody knows what's happening at any point in the game. That's the way you got to be looking at our lineouts now. Every single guy knows exactly what's going on where.
Danny, what do you think went wrong in those lineouts in the second half at the end? As best you can remember.
I do remember I remember being frustrated. I think it was a mix of both of missed throw, nerves, maybe just a jump not quite getting there fast enough. You know, like I felt the very last one was a bit, you know, I felt Terry Martin he wasn't backing himself. He was worried at that point. Now this is the time to do it. You're in a preseason match. In season like this doesn't matter. This is a good time to get out iron out any issues.
What was impressive for me was that Connacht finished both halves on the attack. Like, they didn't score at the end of the first half when they might have scored at the end of the first half. And they, again, as you said, Rob, 3 lost lineouts in the last 3 minutes of the game or 4 minutes of the game, because they were constantly on the attack. They definitely seemed to be very fit.
They had more players, I suppose, as well. Munster stuck with their 23. I think they went 27. But I just wonder, like, just maybe to push back against that, Danny, you can come in off the back of William, but I'll ask William first. Like, is there a danger of underestimating a preseason friendly? Because William, you interviewed them on day one when they got back. You know how many weeks they've been back, and listeners of the podcast know that as well. Like, these games aren't to be kind of sniffed at as a chance to show yourself or as a chance to highlight some issues. So, like, Dylan Tierney-Martin will be frustrated with himself if it is all down to him.
Yeah, when you get to this stage, you don't expect to lose 3 lineouts in a row, especially in attacking positions against no jump. Remember, they didn't contest.
Yes,
and that's huge, because they
big
were
difference to South Africa, like, for example.
Yeah, they were expecting to be able to defend on the maul. That's what they were getting ready for, but they never had to do that. So that will be a frustration. But as Danny says, get them out of the way now, find out what the issue is and fix it.
Okay.
But they've only got, they have a game in Edinburgh on Friday night, and then it's just more training and getting ready. And then the season starts. And as we discussed on the live stream, by New Year's Day, when they play Munster next, they will have 9 games played in the URC and 2 in Europe, and you will know then where you are. So that's something you have to strike a balance on. Once this season starts, it just comes one game every weekend,
That's the way
and
it should be. That's the way I like it. I'm frustrated sitting. We're near the end of September, and I've only seen one game of rugby live so far. And I'm just, I can only watch so much television, and I can only watch so much of it on television. Now, having said that, watching it on television, that game on Saturday night has to be one of the best, probably the best pool game that was ever been in a World Cup. Rob.
Yeah, it was pretty sensational. It's probably the most uncomfortable I've been watching a rugby match for a long time. Cheers. I mean, when it ended, I was exhausted. I hope these players know what they're putting us through. I hope they know that. I mean,
especially
if there's a homecoming, the players should be welcoming the fans back in the airport. That's what really should be happening here.
Well, absolutely. Well, especially when Sia Khaleesi went off, I took Ireland at 6-5 to win the game because I figured once he was gone, they had a real chance. And I was quite comfortable up until that last line out, that last set of mistakes that we started to make. And it got very uncomfortable at that stage.
I got a question that's for you, Alan. Like, should we kick the ball away like we did? I thought we should. And the mistake comes then in terms of the lack of discipline. Does anyone else think we should have held the ball in the last 3 minutes there?
Well, you have to look at South Africa hadn't really, apart from the try, once they weren't particularly good at getting out of their own half. But we give away 2 penalties. Tired players gave away 2 penalties, and that's where the problem came. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. William, do you think, actually, before I come to you, William, let's hear what our man in Paris, as he is now, because he's moved on from Bordeaux, Marc O'Connor. I chatted to him last night just to get his views on was it really that good in the stadium and around Paris? And here's what he had to say. Okay, we've got Marc O'Connor back. He's still in France. Marc, have you survived the weekend? Because it certainly looked amazing on television in the Stade de France the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. I'm just about still standing. I've embraced the Paris lifestyle. I'm about 6 baguettes in over the course of the weekend and probably around 8 to 10 kg heavier. But I've got a La Rochelle top on now. I've really embraced the full French lifestyle now. But after that game, geez, I needed about 2 days sleep to recover from the excitement of the whole thing. Honestly, it was incredible. I've never experienced a match atmosphere like it, and that's not recency bias. It was phenomenal, and I was fortunate enough to have been at the sports ground for the whole Pro 12 run, and the atmosphere there, I'm sure you remember yourself, was extremely special. But I honestly can't remember anything like this. It was ridiculous. I'm running out of words to describe it. I mean, it was just special is the word.
And I believe, listening to other podcasts, because the journalists are all from every persuasion are going on about what Paris was like, that they'd never seen anything like it, that no matter where you went to as Irish fans. Is that something you came across as well, I assume?
Everywhere, I did turn to a friend of mine tongue in cheek and said, look, the sea of green, all the Irish fans are out in force. Where are the South Africans,
Yeah.
But it definitely helped that sea of green that both teams were generally in that shade. But I mean, look, you could spot the big old Irish heads on everyone in every street corner, Paris City, even the metro. Like we're staying in Saint Denis. We're quite close to the stadium. And we went extremely early because they were showing the England-Chile game in Stade de France, just to try and encourage, people in and avoid the public transport nightmares that have happened in the past in the World Cup so far. So they opened the grounds even an hour earlier than the earlier time they had set last week. So we were there extremely early in position, and it was just wall to wall with green from the get-go. From outside the stadium, people enjoying I'm sure you've seen the posters that people had like a Temple Bar flag up and really put their flag in the ground and staked the Irish claim for the little while. But it was just incredible. It was Irish everywhere. Plenty of Bach fans as well, of course. They turned out in force, and they certainly made their voices known to the crowd. But it was just incredible. And even I turned to the friend of mine who was there, because he was at the 2018 All Blacks match in the Aviva.
Oh, right.
And it's the only thing I could think of that could have rivaled it. I said, well, what do you think? Compare it to that, because I mean, it's, for me, this is the best. And he said, the Aviva was special that day, but this is something else. I mean, the case in point was 20 minutes to go during one of the water breaks. The fields of Athenry just blows everything apart. Even, I mean, look, maybe it's me reading into it too much, but even in watching the match back, you can see Ian Henderson look around for a second, and you can swear it even pierces the kind of, the professional mindset of the players, that even there was a moment where it looked like even he was like, this is nuts. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like there was obviously more than 30,000 Irish, because that's up the report. You started going. There must have been more than 30,000 Irish there. And did the Box fans get involved in the singing a zombie afterwards, or were they all gone at that stage?
Not really. We had a line of them right behind us who were generally friendly to us, anyways. Now, whenever the referee made any decision, the cries were a little bit less on the positive side, we'll say. But not really. I mean, there was a few Bach fans around us, and they were most of them shook hands and were generally good sports about it. But some stayed and absorbed the atmosphere. I'm sure some have seen doing the rounds on social media. There's a great shot of a Springbok fan looking like he's turning into a Bond villain with every single line of zombie that rings out. You know, it's his villain arc origin story. But no, it was exceptional, really. You know, and I mean, all the fans, the vast majority of Irish fans stayed until every player had left the pitch. You know, like there was. The whole I won't call it a lap of honor. I suppose just the Irish team walking around showing their appreciation for the fans that have turned out, and just
because the South Africans did it as well, though, didn't they? It wasn't just Ireland, because
they did. No, in fairness, once the Irish team had pretty much finished their whole lap, the Box themselves, in fairness, did come round, and you know there was a huge cheer for Sia Khaleesi. Fast Kirk was giving plenty of thumbs up to some of the Irish at the front and took a photo or two with it looks like a relation to his, maybe, that in the Springbok jerseys. But in fairness, they still show their appreciation. I mean, look, the Springbok fans generally came further than even the Irish fans did. So there was a good, nice atmosphere, in fairness. You know, I know the quarterfinal now, if provided we qualify for it and all, I think that will really capture the public's mind back home. You know, I mean, there's been many comparisons at this stage made to Italia 90 that were almost on the cusp of the country going mad for it, because the team is in such a great way. And look, I know Italia 90 is held in such a high pedestal, and some might be rolling their eyes and be making that comparison prematurely, but there's definitely shades of it looking like it's pointing that direction.
And it'll be fascinating to see, as you say, if we do manage to beat Scotland, whether that sparks this whole everybody wanting to know what the hell is going on with the rugby. And you know, and I'll know because my mum will start talking to me about it. That's how I'll know. But your mum's obviously gone home now. She enjoyed that match the last day, but she's headed home. Is she going to come back again now that
well, pretty much the second she touched back on home soil, she was trying to work out how to get out again, you know. So it's kind of case in point that the quarterfinal madness, I think, will really set in, provided that Scotland result turns out the right way. But she's coming over for quarterfinal weekend. She's dragging over 2 friends of the family as well, and she's gonna hit up Paris. As the Airbnb booked, no match tickets, of course, no match tickets yet. But the flights and Airbnb are sorted, and the tickets will come later. So I think the clamour for those quarterfinal tickets will be right up there. I mean, the Springbok tickets were going for crazy money online, and even that's off the actual verified sources where you can buy tickets. So I think the clamour, because I think there is a sense that this actually could be the one where Ireland get past the quarter, you know, and it may, you know, touch wood, maybe even better. But there's a very palpable buzz on the streets. Even I think the French fans have been won over as well. Like I saw myself in Romania, and I'm sure those saw like the Samoa warm-up test match. The French crowd were kind of rooting against Ireland because they're aware of them as a threat. And you know, there's a little bit of, you know, maybe feeling that Ireland are getting a little bit too tall on their tippy toes when they haven't made it very far in World Cups before. But I think the style of rugby they're playing, the heart that's with the team, the fun from the fans, I think it's starting to sway the French public. I mean, the cover of L'Équipe since the weekend has been all, you know, the future is green, and you know it's excellent, really, you know. So and that's nice as well. You know, Ireland are unproven in World Cups as of yet, but I think this specific team has earned a nice corner of respect at this stage, you know. And look, we're not going to get carried away with ourselves as much as people might think. I'm getting carried away with myself, but I think it's a huge stepping stone. But look, I was in Japan 2019. I saw the Springboks lose to New Zealand, and they still went all the way to lift the trophy. First team to lose a pool match and lift the trophy. So look, I have harsh memories of 2015 and the Ireland-France match. I got carried away with that match in the pool stage, I'll admit it. So I thought Ian Madigan was going to kick his way to at least a final for us. But look, it's a huge plus for the team. It's a huge step up, and there's more to come. That Scotland game, I really think, will be a cracker. I'm hoping it catches on in the same way as the Springboks match, and maybe after a week, people will kind of realize, no, this is a big game as well. So
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what Scotland do next weekend, and I'm assuming they're going to do what they need to do and make it real. So what are you doing? What are you doing next weekend? Like, you've no Ireland game next week, so what are your plans?
Yeah, well, I mean, the sightseeing is really set in as of today. You know, I enjoyed a pizza in front of the Sacre-Cœur earlier today,
excellent.
which is with the most notionsy thing I think I've done since being in Bordeaux, enjoying a vineyard. So, no, it's been excellent, you know, and funny enough as well, you know, I did go with the La Rochelle top today while I wandered around, but one of the friends I'm over with had the Irish jersey on, and plenty of French fans giving the nod, or, you know, a little clap as we walk by, so, you know, which is nice too. But it's sightseeing mode now, really. I mean, even though there's a break week for Ireland this weekend, I'm a big nerd myself, so I'll still be watching, you know, Namibia, Uruguay on Wednesday. Happy out. I've got the team sheet screenshotted from Uruguay, so I have my fantasy team, you know, revving up now for who I'm going to pick. But no, I'll still watch everything. You know, the fan zone in Paris City Centre is really, it's extravagant and brilliant. It's massive. I mean, if I thought the ones in Japan were impressive, or the one in Bordeaux or Nantes, this one, it's 4 massive screens back to back. It's in Place de la Concorde, if anyone knows where that is.
I know where that is.
And they have the whole area completely blocked off. Little, you know, they call all the fan zones a rugby village, but this actually feels like a little village for rugby, you know. And there's plenty of avenues for slightly shorter folk like myself to actually see the screen. So definitely be keeping an eye on all the matches over the weekend, anyways. And it's just brilliant. The country has properly embraced the World Cup. Slightly bumpy start on the administration side, put to one side. It's caught on quite well, and there's plenty of more fun to come. The Fiji jersey will be dusted off very soon.
Excellent.
So
I like it. Okay, Mark, we'll leave it there. We'll chat to you in a couple of weeks' time after the Scotland game, and hopefully you'll be still in such cracking form.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, William Marcus, on the button. That man is loving life at the moment and really enjoying Paris. It wouldn't be bad to be heading over there to the Scotland game, because I'm assuming the atmosphere there will be pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be more Irish people with tickets, because we're very good at getting tickets, whatever way we manage it. Huge atmosphere. Everybody's talking about it around the world. There's no doubt about that. It's been talked about in the UK media, the French media, Southern Hemisphere media, South African media.
New Zealand.
Brendan Nell got his trip.
He got his trip, yeah.
And he seems to have had a very good time. He looked a bit tired on Sunday, and he flew home then, and got stuck in a very long passport queue in Oliver Tambo Airport. But yeah, it was intense. It was hard, physical. I thought Ireland were really, really good. Their defence
apart from the lineouts.
Yeah, the lineouts is an issue, which is we've just discussed.
But they'll have to. But they did fix it. This is the point.
They did fix it, but they'll have to be. It was very interesting listening to John Muldoon, and we're going to play that interview out at some stage here. He was on Galway Bay last night. He gave a really long explanation about how you show people stuff in the lineout, and then you close it off, and then you show them again, but it's slightly different.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Here's that clip.
I would count South Africa being the best lineout D in the world. Why is that? Well, firstly, they're massive. Height does have a factor in it. If you've got a couple of lads who are 6'9" or 6'10", that makes a huge difference. I do believe the bomb squad, in inverted commas, I was delighted when I saw the two of them coming on, because I'll be honest, Nyman and Klein aren't as good as what the two lads that were on there before. Right. That certainly helped us win more lineouts as the game went on, but just tactically, I think the second lineout is probably the lineout to focus on. Basically, what everyone in sport does is they show you something, and it's there and it's available for a short period, and then they'll show it you it's a cat and mouse scenario, and then they try and take it away. And Ireland's first line-out, which they lost, they ran the same line-out on line-out 7 or 8 and won it. It's all a cat and mouse, but I think that second line-out that I'm talking about is it's a 5-man line-out, and everyone will say throw it to the front, it's the easiest position to win. Ireland run it towards the front, and at the last minute they do a change where Kirchhoff, ginger hair, looks like he should be playing for Ireland, playing for South Africa. He's at the front. He's actually the +1. He's supposed to be 2 meters back, and they cheat. He runs in. Technically, there's no front lifter to lift there, so I'm getting really technical here. But it's all about like sleight of hand and trying to make it a little bit, showing you a space, taking it away. And I think it took a few lineouts, and there comes a little bit of panic, and we had it on Friday night against Munster, where we lost a couple of uncontested lineouts, and you have those moments, and you can't prepare lads enough for those moments where just a little bit of tension, and we'll always train, but when it comes to the big moments, that a little bit of adrenaline might send the ball 2 inches higher or 2 inches further than it normally would.
John's always so detailed, isn't he, William?
He loves lineouts, and he absolutely was just purring last night. I could see he was almost looking for a few Lego pieces to start doing it on the table in the studio about what South Africa were up to, about how they moved players back in and took the jumper out and moved somebody round. And he said it's all a game of sleight of hand. And he said Ireland do have to tighten up. There's no question. He thinks they'll fix it. But the intensity of Ireland's defence and breakdown shocked South Africa. It certainly shocked their media. They expected to win that area, and they didn't. And that's where their problems started.
Yes.
And the way, the cohesiveness and the belief in that. Yes, South Africa, well, we called it. They played without a goal kicker, so that cost them a problem. I was surprised that Faf de Klerk took the 2 long-range kicks. Yes, he's a good long-range kicker, but it's 0 out of 2.
But he hit the post. Like he was that close with the first one. They eventually scored the try.
Alan, that's not good enough, you see. That's the thing. Hitting the post is not good enough when you're asked to do that.
I think it's okay in a pool game. I think in a World Cup final it'd be a very different matter.
Yeah, and Pollard, by their own admission, it was interesting today, South Africa coaching ticket basically started to close down the Pollard thing and say, look, this guy is they basically said he's an okay goal kicker, but he's not.
Sorry, just as you talk about that, there was a stat come out. He was only at 67% in the last World Cup. He's not. Yes. He's not the greatest kicker in the world.
No, he never is, and he also is not a playmaker like Lebock is. And the problem is now they're trying to get both of them in the team, and they're saying, well, if you put a Pollard at 12, he doesn't tackle. So in modern rugby, your 12 has to tackle. If he's not up for the fight, you have a problem. So they're pushing back on the fact that they were called on that, and they also didn't have a reserve hooker, because the first thing the reserve hooker did was lose a lineout, and then he threw a crooked one. Yeah. He's not a hooker. So get somebody else to throw the ball in. So this 7-1, the things that went wrong for South Africa were the things that we picked up on. Without getting into what Ireland did to them. They were 2 simple mistakes, and they know they have to fix them, but they're not sure how they're going to fix them. You don't replace Malcolm Marx easily.
With Dean Fury. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Danny, were you surprised? Like, the big thing about Ireland was, well, they haven't played against a decent side since the thing, and they always struggle against big packs. But like as William said, they were ferocious in the loose.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Like, that was the whole thing, that Ireland can't go toe-to-toe with South Africa. They went toe-to-toe with South Africa. Some of the hits that, like Ringrose, our centres, all 3 of them, even Robbie when he came off the bench, some of the hits they were putting in, like, South Africa can't play Pollard at 12 because you can't replace Damien Diliande with a guy that doesn't tackle and a guy that doesn't run as hard as he does. Because, like, I don't understand. I don't know how the box would play doing that. I was on the edge of my seat. My heart was in my mouth from, I think, minute 1 watching that match the weekend. But
and Rob, do you think? Sorry, Danny, just to cut across you there. Sorry, Rob, do you think that we're looking at the possibility if Ireland do manage to beat Scotland, that we're looking at rugby's version of Italia '90?
I don't know.
Maybe.
To a degree.
It was it was Mark who said that in his interview. In case you hadn't heard it, it was Mark who said that.
Can I say something though that's going to just annoy you? But like, you have to understand that I have a really good feel for this, which is
absolutely.
And you see, I'm going to say the word, and you're going to go, oh, Jesus! But
bear with me for a second. People are rightly sick of the Mayo movement. It's kind of just draining the life out of people outside of Mayo. For Mayo people, it's just a love for football. But the quest and all that stuff is come from all this emotion of defeats. It's layer upon layer. And I think people sometimes talk about Mayo fans as like, oh, everyone in that little pocket of Ireland has a different emotional makeup, or they're different humans. And you're like, we're a tiny island. We're not different. We're just shaped by the circumstances of what's happened to the sporting team that we really passionately care about. And what I think is, what I laugh is, I know a lot of GA fans who are rugby fans and who slag me off about being from Mayo or the Mayo-ness of what we bring. And then I watch them as Irish rugby fans get like outrageously excited, and they go, oh, I can't get carried away because, oh God, what if we lose? But we're going to win it. No, we're going to lose. We're definitely going to lose to Scotland. No, we're going to win it. And I'm listening to them go, I'm just smirking in the background going, this is you're literally Mayo. The entire country is Mayo fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I love it because there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a Welsh guy saying, I think Irish fans annoy me more than that's why they annoy him. If you want to know why would anyone not like us, think about how you feel about Mayo fans if you're not part of that side of the Connacht following thing. I think a lot of our followers from Mayo will be like, exactly, this is what it's like. I'm thinking of Pete and plenty of others, because it's, and that's not to say you can continue to think that the Mayo stuff is nonsense, and there's no harm in that. And you can be from Wales and think that the Irish rugby fans are nonsense. But to answer your question, yes, it can be Italian 90. Yes, it can be transformative for a country. No, it doesn't matter if we lose that we got carried away for a little while, because Jesus, we're only on this earth for a short period of time. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy every second of this. And the difference for us, our listeners and ourselves here, is we freaking love rugby inside out, right? And we love all these people who are jumping on board, just like what happens with Mayo football. Don't doubt it. There's a ton of people who don't really watch much football outside of Mayo. Let them in, let them have loads of fun. Absolutely. I was at the Romania match and I enjoyed every second of it. But the bottom line for us four, and I think for our listeners, is, can we execute off the back of what we think is a better rugby team than anything we've ever seen before? And that's fascinating me. So I'm not really getting wrapped up in the Italian 90 vibe of it. And I'm one who...
Yes.
Yeah.
And
well,
Danny, I'll say this to you, Danny. Like you obviously won't know about Italian 90. You weren't even born when it was Italian 90.
You can listen to a podcast.
Yeah. Very good. But what I will say is, you will know what Italian 90 was like if your granny starts talking to you about Bundy Aki and James Ryan, because that's what it was like for me coming back from England as I was living at the time. And people asked me, my mum's friends talking to me about Paul McGrath's knee, and I'm looking and going, how do you know about Paul McGrath's knee? That's when Italian 90, if this happens, would hit. And it might happen if we do get into another quarter final. But William, just from your point of view, are you worried about Scotland? Do you think that we should be worried about Scotland?
No, not really.
Ooh,
I think they'll take Scotland, and they will treat them with 100% respect. And Scotland will huff and puff. They won't handle the physicality of Ireland in defence, and they'll struggle to be as physical dealing with our attack. Tonga cut them open a couple of times. They just aren't at that level. Now, it can go wrong in a game, but I don't think it will. I think that the break is ideal for Ireland now. They've got a week off. They've got their families over there. They've played their big game. They've won it. I think they'll be ready for Scotland. Scotland's record against Ireland is abysmal. They will definitely come to play. It's a shootout game. If Scotland win by 8 points and we don't get a bonus point, we're not going to the quarterfinals. That will concentrate minds. Johnny Sexton, whoever else, the leaders, they all seem to be leaders. There's a lot of leaders in that team now. And it was interesting. Stuart Barnes had a bit of a dig at them. He's a guy I respect, but he had a dig at them about, he said they shouldn't have celebrated the win the way they did. But it was fascinating that a lot of South Africans were coming back at him and saying, of course they should. You've just won a huge game. And you have to respect your fans.
The South African team went out and did a bit of a half lap as well. They were just
well, I'll tell you what they did.
It was just the occasion that was in it.
But it was exactly, it was the occasion. And the point that was made by a couple of South African fans was that the last people to leave the arena were the South African players who were out doing selfies 20 minutes after Ireland had tootled back into the dressing room. Players are entitled to do that. It's part of their wind down.
Yes.
And I'm sure they went and had a couple of beers, but they know what they're at. There's a prize here. Ireland in the past in World Cups never seemed to have believed really in the prize.
No.
They've never, you got that feeling that it was something they just couldn't see happening. But when you've won 16 games in a row,
and you've beaten absolutely everybody in every situation. And that was your last test, was can you beat France away from home, although it was more like a home game, Danny. You reckon it was? I asked this to Brendan Nell about, well, did they feel it was to be a home game? I think every game in the Stade de France is going to be a home game from now on.
It certainly looks like that. But I guess the thing about like the Irish players celebrate.
Not when they play France in the final.
No, no. Well, France have to get there.
Well, France without Dupont or not. Yeah.
You know,
he'll be back. You watch it. This face mask will work. You watch.
Oh, I don't know. I've broken my face recently, and yeah, it's quite painful. And if he's got screws in
he's
there,
a big lad.
Any kind of knock, and that goes. All of them, like,
you lose
I sat down with a consultant, and they said
that's all right. He can play with one eye. Just put a bit of tape over the other eye.
Danny, the South Africans won't be. They'll let him play. I mean, they won't be after that. I mean, they wouldn't be targeting that or anything.
No, there's absolutely no way that Ox Nietzsche was targeting Josh van der Fleer's finger that he dislocated. He wasn't. He was just helping him put it back in again. He wasn't trying to take it out.
But the player reaction afterwards from South Africa is what it was the ultimate crowning glory of what an absolute ruthless team they are, because they are the most decent, honourable men off the pitch. It's incredible. They speak so well. They set such a great bar and tone for who they are as players. And but when you see them on the pitch, you're like, holy mother of God, they're out to kill. Like, and I mean in the sense that they'll hit Sexton every time. I think they laid that ball up in the air for Hansen to catch, so two of them could smash him in the midriff. I think they were just like I think they nearly set situations up so they can smash you. But good news is Ireland have
because they thrive off that. They thrive off that.
I'm not really saying there's anything wrong with it, but like the ball.
No. They manufacture those kind of things. They manufacture those opportunities on a regular basis.
But the other thing is, Danny, and this is key to this game: no yellow cards, no red cards, no high hits, no nonsense, no player shouting at the referee, no TMO. A couple of times he spoke to the referee. I had my headphones on listening. You'd hear him come in and say, "That's fine, we've checked it." Only one person really talking to him, Johnny Sexton and Saya Khaleesi. It just had that upper level. And then you watch Tonga play Scotland, and Tonga.
They're a disgrace, William. Yeah. They're an absolute fucking disgrace. Fafita at 8 was just a thundering disgrace. Should have been red carded for 3 different things. I'm raging about
it. Disappointed. They're so disappointing. When you look at Fiji.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
But, I was listening to another podcast, and ex-player Dan Levy made a very good point about it. It's like this has been. These laws have been in now for 3 years. It's laziness.
Yeah.
These guys are pros. And this is what I get frustrated about. You know, guys going, they should, that's a 50-50 call. No, if they go high, they hit the head, that's it. Goodbye. Get rid of it. Just knock it out of the game. This is 3 years now. They are pros. This is what they do.
100%. And this other bullshit, tackle school.
Oh,
what a load of nonsense.
It's worked for Bundy.
These guys are perfect.
Hang on, it's worked for Bundy. Look at the hits he was making at the weekend. He was smashing fellas.
That's the Irish management team working on Bundy. That's not tackle school. That's Andy Farrell school.
Well, or I suspect the fact that they have 4 sports psychologists, not one, they have 4.
William, that's exactly it. It's not about technique; it's about a mindset. You're absolutely right.
This is why I've been wondering why Connacht don't look at this and rather get an extra physical coach to do lineouts or whatever. You know, get a psychologist in. You keep hearing at the top level the difference between the good guys and the great guys is the 3 inches or 4 inches in your head.
It is. And Ireland have 4 of them. And you look at a player like Bundy, he hasn't said boo to a referee. Hasn't said a word. hasn't, even if he was penalised for something on that game, which probably was a bad call by the referee. He just ran backwards and he was talking to himself. I think he was probably saying, "Don't put yourself in that position." And it was a good call,
by the way. He had sealed off, but
But ever since do you remember William? Do you remember the stupid Bundy shout when he was stupid Bundy? But I think that now that you're saying all this, I think that was probably coming from a lot of coaching that was coming to him. That was just and his way of kind of verbalizing that from his own perspective was to just chastise himself. But I think he's happy. And whether we like it or not, and we don't know anything that was going on in Connacht. Like, I think whatever was going on in Connacht at the last season, he just wasn't happy. That doesn't mean he was right and Connacht wrong by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a bottom line. The Bundy is a happy camper at the moment, and then we're
absolutely. But I think they're all happy. Johnny Sexton looks happy on a rugby field.
Yes.
Which is quite remarkable.
Peter O'Mahony is the same.
But I said on Galway Bay, and I was half joking about this, but I wasn't really. The sight of O'Mahony on a bike wearing those ridiculous, what are they called? Crocs?
Yeah.
And he's got
Keith Earls hanging off the back.
Keith Earls hanging off the back reading his phone. I've never seen Ireland at that in a World Cup. Yeah. They just disappeared into these hotels, none of which seemed to be good enough, and sat there, and it all closed in on them.
Yeah.
But that's the Andy Farrell difference. That's learning from the mistakes.
And that's cycling. This is why you need cycling. We don't need a £1 billion bridge across the river. We need more cycle lanes so we can have rugby players cycling through the town.
You're the editor, so I can't say this, but cut that out. No, but actually, having said that, I do agree with your point. There's just no place for it here. Like I was going to add to that, William, you mentioned Andy Farrell there. So you can have sports psychologists, and Alan said, we should be looking for that as well as physical coaches. But just one thing to circle right back to the start of the pod. Like, I talked to John Muldoon for 2 or 3 minutes before the game the last day, because I had to get team news. So I was actually in the dressing rooms, which I wouldn't ever be for the bigger games, obviously. And just the energy that man brings, like John may not end up being successful here, and he won't mind me saying this, like, 'cause there's a technical element to his job that he is determined to execute, that he was determined to execute in Bristol, and he has to, and that's what ultimately he'll sink or swim on. But like, he's a club legend, for want of a better term, because we're a province, but he means so much to the people of Connacht, and I think it's coming out in everything he does. Now, you spent an hour or two with him yesterday, William, but I do think sports psychology is more than just a psychologist. It's the people who are delivering the message to you from all angles.
Yeah, it is. Sports psychology is, well, as we learned when we spoke to Jack Birtwas, it's still in its infancy. And a lot of clubs don't go anywhere near it. It's almost unheard of in the Premier League. Now, if you look at the money that is spent in the Premier League trying to get players from all over the world in, paid huge amounts of money. They have chefs there to make sure they get the food from that they are used to eating. They get this, they get that. But sports psychology is a bit of a non-starter there. It's around rugby. It's around all sports, but it's often an individual thing. It's a runner or a golfer or a tennis player. The fascinating one that he had was, and he spent time in America, Jack, baseball, they're everywhere, but they're never talked about. I was shocked by that.
Sports. They're in a lot of American sports, all the way down through college. Look at there was that NFL, the quarterback on Netflix over the summer. You look at was it Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. He spends at least 1 or 2 days a week with one of these guys and just sits down and speaks to him for hours. And he said he's been working with that guy for 6 years.
Yeah,
it's right the way through the game. They all.
But it's very hard to get the clubs to sort of admit it. But I think they're vital, and the fact that Ireland have 4 of them there, from what I understand, suggests that they realise that it's vital.
And I would say, William, they realise too that the coaches need them as well. Because I think that's a critical element of it. The people who are imparting the message in the past have not kind of examined their own mindsets, and I think that is as much. And
that's part of the review, and that comes back to David Nucifora, who never gets any positive reviews, but he came back from the last World Cup and said that the players and the coaches felt under pressure and they weren't able to deal with the pressure of expectation. and he's obviously part of that.
And the interesting thing was that Jack Birtwistle made the point that if a player says, I don't want you talking about this to the coach, it doesn't go any further.
Mm-hmm.
But if a player says, I need to get that message to the coach, but the coach isn't listening, Jack Birtwistle would act as a sort of an intermediary, or he would talk to the coach, because
very important. Very important.
Huge. And all these people are different. Every single one of the 33 players out there has some.
Yeah.
They're all different. They've got different quirks. They can be. Some of them will be empowered in different ways. Some will worry about different things. Some will worry about things that are completely maybe off the rails. And they'll say to a sports psychologist, I'm worried about X. And if they said it, we'd be going, that's got nothing to do with rugby. Will you just get on? But they take it on board. But he made the point that it is, we think it's everywhere. He said it's not. Yeah. It's still developing. And there's a failure to understand how much more you can actually get out of it if you use it.
Can I make one last point here? And you might be bringing it to an end anyways, because we've got two other subjects to cover. But we could lose to Scotland. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility. We could even lose them by 8 points. I, like William, don't really see it happening because I feel kind of more calmer about what we're watching. But my point is this. It's something that gets lost in the Mayo bubble when you're right in there and everyone's so wrapped up in it. They stop thinking about the fact that there are other teams out there. That's why people start to get frustrated and don't like the fans, because you got to realize there's 15 Scottish players on the bench with a really good management team who will look at the game in was in Murrayfield this year, wasn't it, in Six Nations, and go, yeah, geez, we had them in many ways. I know Ireland had all their issues, but they had us in so many ways. And they will think to themselves, we can do this. So you got to realize all of this is brilliant, and we should just take what we've seen and trust that they've put themselves in the best possible position they can. And after that, a bit of luck. You just hope you're the best on the day, because unfortunately the tournament's set up in a pretty shitty way that you could get caught.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's what makes the tournament so great as well. That you have to show that you are the best the whole way through. Now with this little change this time, that you do get the break. I know, I think that's kind of easing it up just ever so slightly, and it's worked really, really well in Ireland's favour. Now, I don't think it would have worked if Ireland had lost, if South Africa had managed to score at the end there. Having that week off where they didn't get a chance to set things right, it could have easily gone the other way.
So do you think, Danny, just looking at the other side of the draw, though, like England are getting an easy run, they're actually running themselves into some sort of decent form, and look at Wales, like, you can look at Australia and think, wow, again, halfway through that match, I went, wow, I'm actually going to put even more money on Wales in this game because Australia are just rubbish. But Wales have now won 3 games in a row, and they'll feel they can get to a semi-final, and they'll feel that they can keep going.
Yeah, look, that's definitely a benefit for them, but have they played at anything at the level of Ireland and South Africa or New Zealand and France? Those were 2 games that, 3 years ago when the draw was done, everyone went, right, they're the big games. And they kind of looked at the England, the other pools as kind of like, oh yeah, these would be good 3 years ago. But as it got closer, they're kind of like, oh, okay, we'll see how it goes. I'm not so sure that, yes, they have a winning streak, but will they be able for the battle-hardened teams that are coming out the other side of the draw? Now, it's knockout rugby, anything can happen. But I think the South African and Ireland team from the weekend will come out laughing. They've basically played a final in the pool stages, which is really going to stand to them, to both teams. And France just beating New Zealand at home took off a hell of a lot of pressure. That means they're top in their pool. They're doing their country proud kind of thing. Like if they'd lost that game, I think that would have been a massive psychological blow to them. But I think they're coming out big time, and you can't write off the Kiwis. If you write off the Kiwis saying that they're in bad form or anything like that, these guys have won the World Cup 3 times. You can't write them off.
I agree. I'm looking at Fiji now. Someone was flagging me the other day. I'd originally said back in the summer Australia were my dark horse, but that was before he picked the most ludicrous squad that's ever been picked for a World Cup. When you look at the players that Eddie Jones left at home, but Fiji are looking much better. They should be unbeaten, to be honest.
Yeah, they weren't far off that. And again, that comes back to we said it on the radio a couple of weeks back that the Fiji Dura and the Pacific teams that they've put into the Super Rugby has been a massive help. And it was probably too soon this tournament to see any kind of major change in all of the teams. You can see it in Fiji, but I think they've been building that for a while. But I think it'll be the next tournament where they're going to be at a much higher level.
Which the way it should be, considering the quality of the players they have, Rob, and they play such a. I was going to say they play such an exciting level of rugby, but they've been incredibly pragmatic in the first two games.
It's all I wanted to see. You heard me giving out about them the last day. That's the perform. The Australian performance was everything. It's scrummaging, line outs, good decision making. That's the Fiji I love. More of that. That's because I'm sick of the other stuff. And then, just a little bit of class.
And kick penalties when you have to.
Yes.
William.
No, and I think this is great because I've forgotten the guy who kicked all the penalties. I've forgotten his name, but he was interviewed the following day and he said, interviewer said, have you ever kicked 5 out of 5 before? And he said, nah, never.
Exactly.
Even better answer, I thought.
Now did you say it though? Hey, Fiji Argentina World Cup semi-final. You heard it here first. That's what's going to happen for me. I think Argentina is still going to come good. I think they have one bad moment, but I think they'll beat Wales.
Well, I think it'll be Wales-England, so there you go. No, it won't. It'll be Wales and England through for me, and we'll be playing Wales. England will be playing France.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you know what I mean. I got mixed up myself there. Argentina, Fiji into the semi-finals. Yes, of course, they're not playing each other.
It certainly the other pools are interesting because of the lack of quality, I suppose, is one way of putting it. Do you see Italy doing anything weird at the weekend and pulling off some sort of weird result against New Zealand?
You see them coming close. I think they'll rattle both teams.
Italy are so poor in World Cups. You feel at some stage surely they're going to beat a higher ranked nation. They've never managed it. If they can get in New Zealand's faces, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in that New Zealand side, the way they're used to be. The way they just felt, we're going to win this game. That's gone. So can Kieran get them up and at it and just see? It would be fantastic. It would be another fill-up for the competition. Deep down, no, I don't see it because Italy have never done that. But you just hope they go out and really show what they can do, because I'm frustrated with them in the Six Nations, as you know, but I'm equally frustrated with them in World Cups. And I'm also fed up listening to people telling me how good Georgia are and then they can't beat Portugal. But the game I'm really looking forward to is Australia and Portugal, because I think Australia are in such a mess. I don't know, can they, if Portugal come out with the same sort of, almost a devil may care, we're going for this, that Australian side, they were a pitiful mess at the end of that game. They're only 16-6 down at half time. You think, okay, go into the dressing room, get a bit of pep, and out you come. Come out of the dressing room, they were shambles. So,
yeah, you're right.
They were. That was possible.
Samoa, England as well.
Samoa, to me, no. Argentina handled them fairly comfortably. Dreadful game. Probably the worst they have. But I was hoping against hope that maybe Samoa, but I don't see it. I think England will find a way to win that. They'll top the group. Argentina will come through second.
I suppose it might depend on England, Samoa. Japan plays Samoa next. So if Samoa were to get a win there and get them within shouting distance, it might just concentrate the mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out being interesting anyways, that's for sure.
Look, that side of the draw is going to be interesting. There's a couple of teams that are still able to fight to get into those last couple of spots.
Well, I think our side of the draw is going to be interesting if Scotland score in the first few minutes and everyone starts to eat their couches or their cushions or wherever they're watching the game. Probably not though.
You
well, the thing
believe.
is, like Scotland need to win by 8 points, and you need to score about 20 for that to even be possible. And at that stage, you're keeping Ireland to 12. Wow! And obviously, then Ireland are into bonus point territory when they get into the 20s. No, I can't see it. They got to tire the bench coming from Ireland. It'd be an outrageous upset, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah, it'd be a massive upset. But I don't see it happening. I think Scotland just aren't. They're not at the level that they need to be at to be able to take on Ireland. But then again, Ireland could fall victim to the whole thing of you play one big game, can you back it up?
Well, that's sports psychology comes in. If this team is where it needs to be, this is no problem, and that's why I liked William's answer. So I don't see it.
Okay. So let's finish off. We've had a nice long chat here. It's and it's been some good stuff in it, I think. We'll finish off with some good news for some of the Connacht women who've been, I think 5 of them have been picked in the Ireland squad for this upcoming WXV. You've got Avian Riley, Bevan Parsons, Clara Barrett, Maeve Deely and Nicole Fowley. And also just to mention Adele McMahon, who's a Connacht player in her time. She's still playing in England with Exeter, but good to see. It's good to see that the Connacht women are getting recognised, especially the backs, because the backs did pretty well this year, William.
Yeah, they did. The backs kept them in games, I think, a bit more maybe than the forwards who struggled a little bit. Maybe not so much against Leinster, but particularly in the last game against Ulster, which was a bit of a disappointment for them. But we've talked about that. Yeah, look, this competition is very important. Scott Beeman is the new head coach, so he has to start somewhere. Quite why this competition is being started on the weekend of the semi-finals of the Men's World Cup and then going on to the final is quite baffling.
Yep.
It's not available on television anywhere. It is available on World Rugby's site if you want to watch these games. But it's important for him. He have these players together. They'll go to Dubai to play the 3 games. It's great to see Bevan Parsons back from 7s. Showing a commitment that she still wants to play 15s. And then, of course, their Six Nations is coming up. So we wish them all well. I wish them all well from all the provinces. And hopefully they get this right. They certainly owe Spain a game. They should beat Colombia and Kazakhstan. That's
just to give people the dates. 13th of October at 7:30 in the evening, 4:30 Irish time. Sorry, I'll go with Irish time. So 13th of October, they play Kazakhstan at 4:30 Irish time. 21st of October, they play Colombia at 2 o'clock Irish time. And then the last game is on the 28th against Spain. As you say, we owe Spain one.
And William, World Rugby are bringing something too with this tournament. It might seem from a rugby perspective to be playing Kazakhstan and Colombia. Oh my God. But I'm just watching as we record this, the Irish women's soccer team are 4-0 up against Hungary and they're in the Nations League, which seemed ridiculous to people, but it's pitching teams. Ireland are in League B at the moment and they're probably going to dominate that, but it's pitching teams against teams of their size. It's giving, especially in a sport like women's soccer, where teams were getting absolutely hammered and now you're getting the balance, and the exact same is to be said for rugby. So the fact that they get to go to Dubai, stay in good setups, play and train in really good conditions, that all helps. So World Rugby are doing their bit too, and the game will improve from it.
Okay, we'll call it a day there, folks. We're going to take a break next week. I'm away for a week, and there isn't any rugby for us to report on because the game in Edinburgh Connacht are playing is behind closed doors, so we don't have any access to it. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully to talk about Ireland playing in the quarterfinal of a World Cup. So thanks, Danny. Thanks, William. Thanks, Rob.
Loose, cut it loose. Break out or nothing changes. Side